us, so great. Just a reminder that these meetings are recorded and it will get posted to the county website page, and we will put that in the chat in case people need to see that and have not accessed that before. I'm Christine Morin. I'm Supervisor Stork's Chief of Staff and also been chairing this committee since its inception. I am not going to go through the entire list of participants because we have 26 people on here. I don't know that we need to go through all of the introductions, but I do want to make sure I capture the community members that are on here. Kevin Knapp Miller, Bindu Matthew, Brenda Richards, Ray Novitsky, Bill Collins, Jack Reeves, and Catherine Ward. Have I missed anybody?
Yeah, I'm Rodney Sobin. I live on Schooley Drive.
Hi, Rodney. Thank you for joining us. Okay, it has been some time since we've met last. County staff has been very busy working with our development team to come up with the site plans and to work on the rezoning and the comprehensive plan language that'll be coming before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for a public hearing. And we will go through all that as we start going through the presentation. Rod, thank you for letting me know that you're here. Awesome. And wanted to provide everybody with an update. Everyone will be muted and we will take questions from the committee at the end of the meeting. And if at that time everybody can raise their hands, we'll go one by one and we will go through all of the any questions that people have. And so I think with that, Claudia, I will turn that over to you and your team so you can walk us through and give us an update of where we are with the project.
Hi, good evening, everyone. We're going to start based on the agenda with the comprehensive plan language on the project. Then we'll go ahead and give it's an opportunity for us to give you an update on where we are in the design and timeline and future steps. So I will turn it over to David if you'd like to share your screen and go over the comprehensive plan information.
Thank you, Claudia. I will share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, good evening. And again, welcome to the Penn Daw Advisory Committee meeting. I'm David Stenson, a planner with the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Development, and I'm here this evening with Salem Bush, also with Department of Planning and Development, along with Claudia Shalhoub with the Fairfax County Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. Mark Manetti and Brian Vassallo, who are part of the project design team, will also be presenting this evening. So I want to start by outlining the purpose of this evening's meeting. First, we are here to provide information about the proposed comprehensive plan amendment for the Penn Daw Fire Station and Emergency and Supportive Housing Facility. This includes the project background, the proposed comprehensive plan language, and key planning considerations that staff evaluated. We'll also follow the presentation of the comprehensive plan amendment with an update on the project design. After the presentations, we will conclude by providing the opportunity for the advisory committee and the community to ask questions about the project. So this slide outlines the upcoming schedule for both the plan amendment and the associated rezoning application, which are being processed concurrently and are moving forward on the same schedule. The staff report for the plan amendment is scheduled for publication on March 4th, followed by the staff report for the rezoning application, which is scheduled to be published on March 12th. The Planning Commission hearing for both the plan amendment and the rezoning application is scheduled for the same evening on March 25th, and the Board of Supervisors for the plan amendment and the rezoning application are scheduled for April 14th. So this project has, as most of you know, has involved extensive community engagement throughout the process. To date, there have been 19 advisory committee meetings, which took place between April of 2020 and March of 2025. And these meetings focus primarily on site design and I'm sorry, site selection and design refinement. In addition, 7 community-wide meetings were held starting on April of 2021 to share project updates and provide an opportunity for public feedback. Meeting materials and updates from these meetings have been posted online and can be accessed at the project website, which is on the screen, and we can also provide that after the meeting. Next, we will review the background and board authorization for this plan amendment. So the public facilities we're reviewing tonight are part of the adopted capital improvements program. The fire station was approved as part of the 2015 CIP, and the shelter and supportive housing was approved as part of the 2016 CIP. This plan amendment was authorized by the Board of Supervisors on December 5th, 2023. And at the time, the board directed staff to evaluate the potential co-location of 3 public facilities on the subject property, which is shown in red on the map. These public facility uses included a replacement fire station, an emergency shelter, and affordable housing. However, during the early stages of the study, the affordable housing component was removed due to funding constraints. So the plan amendment now focuses on 2 co-located public facilities, a replacement facility for the Penn Daw Fire Station and an emergency shelter with supportive housing for individuals and families. The new fire station is needed to replace the existing Penn Daw Fire Station, which is located approximately 500 feet to the north and as outlined in blue on the map. That facility was built in 1967 and no longer meets the operational needs of today's fire and rescue department. The replacement station will accommodate modern staffing levels and equipment and will support improved emergency response times and service delivery along the Richmond Highway corridor. So the proposed emergency shelter will replace the existing Eleanor U. Kennedy shelter located near Fort Belvoir, roughly about 5 miles to the south of this site. That facility is undersized, operates in a repurposed historic structure, and cannot be expanded due to environmental and historic preservation constraints. So the proposed emergency and supportive housing facility would include 50 emergency shelter beds for individuals experiencing homelessness, 20 supportive housing units for individuals, and 10 supportive housing units for families. It would also provide on-site services such as case management, meals, laundry, and training opportunities. Together, these co-located facilities will allow the county to modernize critical public safety infrastructure and expand access to emergency shelter and supportive housing in a more transit accessible, centrally located part of the Richmond Highway corridor. Next, we'll review the location of the subject property. The site is located along the south side of Beacon Hill Road on the former site of the Hybla Valley Nursery property, and it's highlighted in red on the map. As shown on the map, a portion of the subject property lies within the Beacon Groveton Community Business Center, which guides redevelopment along the Richmond Highway corridor. This site is also within walking distance of a planned Richmond Highway bus rapid transit station, shown as a red star on the map, which was one of the factors considered in evaluating the location of this proposed public facility. Next, I'll review the current comprehensive plan recommendations for the subject property. The subject property is located in Area 4 of the Mount Vernon Planning District, specifically the MV5 Groveton Community Planning Sector. As stated previously, a portion of the site is located within the community, the Beacon Groveton Community Business Center, or CBC. And within the CBC, the adopted plan recommends non-residential uses with building heights up to 50 feet. The portion of the property outside of the CBC is planned for residential use at 2 to 3 dwelling units per acre. So the subject property spans 2 planning designations. This slide shows the existing conditions on site. The subject property is approximately 3.5 acres, and as was previously stated, it was formerly used as the Hybla Valley Nursery. The site is currently vacant and contains a former nursery office building, which was originally constructed as a residence and later converted to commercial use. There's no active use on the property today. This slide shows the surrounding land uses. To the east, north, and south are established single-family residential neighborhoods. To the west, along the Richmond Highway, the area transitions to retail and commercial uses. So the site sits at the edge of the Beacon Groveton Community Business Center and functions as a transition between the Richmond Highway corridor and the adjacent residential neighborhoods. So this plan amendment would establish an option for a public facility use on the site at an intensity of up to 0.6 FAR. The option would allow for the co-location of an emergency and supportive housing facility and a replacement facility for the Penn Daw fire station. The proposed emergency and supportive housing facility would include a 3-story, 55,000 square foot building. And as stated previously, this building would include 50 emergency shelter beds, 20 individual supportive housing units, and 10 family supportive housing units. The replacement facility for the Penn Daw fire station would include a 2-story, approximately 24,000 square foot facility, and would be designed to meet modern operational needs of the fire and rescue department. So the next several slides walk through the key considerations staff evaluated as part of this plan amendment. These included compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods, building heights and transitions, access and transportation, pedestrian improvements, public facility needs, and stormwater and sustainability measures. So we'll start with the public facility considerations. As stated previously, both the fire station and the emergency shelter are aging facilities that no longer meet operational needs. The existing Penn Daw fire station was built in 1967 and cannot accommodate today's staffing levels or modern equipment. Similarly, the Eleanor Kennedy Shelter is undersized. It's located in a historic structure on leased land and cannot be expanded due to environmental and historic preservation constraints. Co-locating these two facilities allows for efficient use of county-owned land, shared infrastructure, and improved access to transit and services along Richmond Highway. This approach aligns with the county's policy plan guidance, encouraging efficient use of public land and the co-location of compatible human services and public safety facilities. In terms of compatibility, the 3-story supportive housing building is located towards the western portion of the site, closer to Richmond Highway, where higher intensity uses are already planned. The fire station, which is 2 stories, is located on the eastern portion of the property. Due to site grading, a retaining wall is required along the portions of the eastern and southern property lines. The project includes enhanced landscaping and buffering to soften views from adjacent homes. And overall, building placement and height transitions are intended to maintain compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Now we will move on to transportation considerations. The proposed public facility uses are expected to generate relatively low levels of traffic compared to many other types of development. A traffic study was conducted by the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, and the proposed facility will only generate a minimal number of additional trips when compared to the use currently planned for the site by the adopted plan. Primarily access from the site would be from Beacon Hill Road, and internal circulation would be refined through the site design process. The project also includes recommended sidewalk and bicycle improvements along Beacon Hill Road, as well as improved pedestrian connections to the planned Richmond Highway BRT station. There are also opportunities to enhance pedestrian safety at the crossings along the site frontage. From stormwater management and sustainability standpoint, the project will be required to meet all current county stormwater management requirements. Because this is a redevelopment of an existing site, it provides an opportunity to improve drainage conditions compared to what exists today. The buildings will also incorporate energy efficient systems and EV ready infrastructure consistent with county sustainability goals. The project will also be consistent with the environmental policy plan and subject to the board's sustainable capital project policy. So to summarize, the proposed plan amendment establishes an option for co-located public facility on the site at an intensity of a 0.6 floor area ratio. This comprehensive plan option would allow a new fire station and an emergency supportive housing facility to be considered through a rezoning process. The plan amendment also includes recommendations to support height transition and buffering where the site abuts single-family homes. Additionally, the draft plan text recommends pedestrian and bicycle improvements along Beacon Hill Road, particularly to enhance safety and strengthen connections to the planned BRT station. Finally, I want to note that a rezoning application for the proposal was submitted by the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. The plan amendment we reviewed provides the policy guidance, and the rezoning application would address the specific site design elements, including building placement, access, buffering, and landscaping. Next, we'll move on to the project design update. Claudia Shalhoub from DPWES and Mark Minetti and Brian Vasallo of the project design team will provide an update. Also, after the presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions from the community and the advisory committee.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we appreciate you being here, and we want to take an opportunity to provide you with an updated design and where we are currently in terms of the entitlement and the design progress and our permitting. So just want to elaborate again on the program. As David mentioned, the fire station is approximately 25,000 square feet. It's 5 apparatus bay. It contains 22 bunks. This includes the battalion chief, and the fire station will have 40 surface parking spaces. For the emergency shelter and supportive housing, it's approximately 55,000 square feet, 50 emergency bed, 20 individual supportive housing unit, and 10 family supportive housing unit. And it has 47 parking spaces. And with that, I would like to turn it over to the design team to go over the design updates. And then at the end, I will end by talking about the timeline and our next steps.
Okay, so I'll take it from here. My name is Mark Minetti with BKV Group, the architect that's leading the design of the overall campus. With me also is Brian Fasala from MTFA, and he will be speaking specifically about the emergency shelter and supportive housing. So we'll start with the site plan that you see before you. The last time we met, there hasn't been a whole lot of change, from the overall design composition. The fire station continues to be located furthest along Beacon Hill Road, away from Route 1, and the emergency shelter and supportive housing portion is located closer to Route 1, adjacent to the commercial properties, the Walgreens facility. Each of these programs has very unique operational requirements and goals and relationships. So I'm going to try and touch on those. The site is going to be entered to serve the supportive shelter and the emergency shelter, emergency housing and supportive housing components about midway through at the curb cut along Beacon Hill Road. That will access to the rear of the site where the parking is located to support the staff and customer parking for the facility. The circulation for vehicles will be limited in the sense that you will not be able to access the fire station from the supportive housing and likewise the supportive housing for the fire station site. The topography of the site provides some challenges that we'll go through, and explain in this presentation. But basically, from the top left corner to the bottom right corner of the site, the existing conditions slope about 30 feet, and then from front to back about 20 feet. And the slope is the high point is along Beacon Hill Road, and the low point is along the property line of the adjacent residential properties. And so when we're developing the site plan, we had to really consider those challenges. The overall size of the buildings, 3-story for the shelter and supportive housing and 2-story for the firehouse, are consistent with the residential community as you're moving down Beacon Hill Road. So you're going from the commercial end, to the residential community, and consistent with the development, the proposed development along that corridor as well. Each one of the programs, each one of the 2 facilities has public access off Beacon Hill Road. I don't know if I can. Am I able to point to things? It's kind of hard to. Can I request control or?
I could. Do you want me to point to something, or maybe?
Sure, I guess so. I mean, that'd be the easiest thing. So, looking at how you enter the buildings, for the shelter, there is that red triangle on the eastern edge of the property, where we have the outdoor space that takes you from Beacon Hill Road. That's the other entrance I'm talking about for the shelter. No. Yeah, there you go. That's the shelter entrance. So you're accessing it off Beacon Hill Road. And then, of course, you have outdoor patio areas that serve programmatic functions that lead you into the shelter and support the overall functions within the shelter as well. So that is the entrance to the emergency shelter. And then, of course, for the supportive housing, it has a separate entrance. It's off of Beacon Hill Road right there. Exactly. So those are the 2 public entrances to those facilities. And, of course, there's going to be there's access from the rear parking lot for staff and for users of the facilities as well who are coming by vehicle. For the fire station facility, there is going to be a main public entrance off of Beacon Hill Road that's going to be accessible. Yep, there you go. And then, of course, there's staff entrances around the side as well for parking. For the fire station, you have the main apron, which is for responding vehicles out to Beacon Hill Road. And of course, you have your return driveway, which is the next curb cut over. And that provides staff, public access, and also return vehicle access for the firehouse. Typically, we like to segregate those, but in this case, from the planning perspective, we were limited to how many curb cuts that we could have for the entire composition. But the parking for the fire station occurs along that driveway and to the rear. As stated previously, there is a substantial grade drop from the top left to the bottom right corner, and the firehouse location, the grade it's really important to maintain 3% grade around the apron, at the aprons and around for the driveway. These are very heavy vehicles. They're full of water in many instances, and you need to maintain roughly 3% grade around the building, or otherwise it creates problems for the vehicle transmissions, or not transmissions, but for the access of the vehicle. So it's important to maintain those grade slopes to support the longevity of the vehicles that are operating out of that facility. And so because of that, what we had to do is we had to build retaining walls around the eastern edge and the southern edge of the site to elevate the grade of the fire station platform to maintain those slope requirements and connect appropriately to Beacon Hill Road, the existing conditions. And so that was a challenge that we'll probably be looking at that through the next successive slides. And then, of course, we do have landscape buffers that are required that separate the public uses from the adjacent residential uses. So in the rear, we're providing a 35-foot buffer, and then, of course, we're looking for roughly a 15-foot buffer along the eastern edge of the site. And around the supportive housing and emergency shelters, we have various amenities spaces for the users to be able to use those functions. For the family supportive housing, we have some play structures and things of that nature to support that overall use. And of course, that use is specifically, for the family supportive units, and the slopes and security separation measures around the building keep that area engaged with the family supportive housing and don't allow access from the other uses. And likewise, the amenity in the front, number 3, the front yard amenity will support the supportive housing as well. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This perspective is from, it's an elevated perspective from Beacon Hill Road at the corner of the facility that's closest to Route 1. What you're looking at, that corner element, that is the 3-story emergency housing facility. And then, of course, as you move down, and you can see the entrance from the amenity space, from the outdoor amenity space, you can see the entrance to the emergency shelter. But then as you move down Beacon Hill Road, you can see the proposed bus shelter that we're going to be delivering as part of this project, and then the entrance to the supportive housing component as well. You start to see the vehicle access as you continue down Beacon Hill Road, and then we're trying to highlight that with a kind of an arched entry to mark that vehicle entrance, and also provide some brand identity for the project. And then as you continue, the next large curb cut is the apron for the firehouse facility, and then you can see the fire station main entrance, public entrance at the very end with accessible ramp to get you to where the entrance is. We're really the straight edge that we want to deliver is consistent with the streetscape standards, and will be fully accessible for pedestrians to be able to access the building. The landscape and planting features are consistent with those standards as well. You're also seeing on the roof level, which won't be visible from street level, but this project is a LEED project. We're looking to achieve LEED Gold certification for both the emergency and supportive housing facility as well as the fire station. We are also looking to achieve a net zero goal for this project as well. So we're doing our best to generate as much electricity on site as we can. And let's go to the next slide. This is from the opposite side, again from Beacon Hill Road, but looking up the street, so focusing on the fire station. Here you can see the grade is a major challenge even along Beacon Hill Road, making sure that we're able to provide accessible entrances for each one of these components. So you're seeing the accessible ramps that lead you to the main entrance from the streetscape for the firehouse. The firehouse the 5 bays for the firehouse will be accented by these folding doors. So it'll be very, from a wayfinding perspective, the firehouse will be very clearly identified within this composition, and to be able to be discerned as to where to enter the building if you're in the public as well. Some of the architectural elements that we really wanted to focus on, the palette of materials includes masonry. We have a nice red brick that we're using, and we're trying to take a specific that element. That red kind of tower element, and we've repeated it on several occasions because it was important that this campus read as a unified civic campus, not as 2 separate dissimilar buildings on the same site. So there's language that we wanted to maintain and to repeat throughout the overall composition. So that red brick is carried over in strategic locations, and then we're using that tan brick to kind of break up the overall massing. So you can see the 3-story massing, but 2 stories of it is that tan brick, and then we borrow that into the high bay area for the fire station. That cornice element was also something that we wanted to carry through. You see it over top of the fire station, and then you see it repeated over the tower above the 11. It's continued over the gateway entrance, and then it pops up again over those 3 red brick masses that anchor the composition for the emergency and supportive shelter. But the overall palette is consistent with materials that you would find in this area. It was important for us to maintain identity. We didn't with the surrounding architectural context, and to really provide a civic campus that is respectful of its surrounding residential community. So we go to the next slide. Again, this is at street level, but it's looking at the corner of the emergency shelter. You can see the entrance to the emergency housing component around that corner, signage as well for wayfinding. And then you can also see the entrance to the supportive housing unit behind the bus stop. But the landscaping and the patio features will really bring the level of the scale of the project down to feel very human, which is important for these facilities that have an institutional flavor to them. We wanted to make sure that we really considered the human scale in this and worked hard to develop that. Let's go to the next one. This is an elevated orthogonal view from the rear of the facility. And so what you're looking at is the corner of the fire station, the two-story fire station. You're seeing the rear apron, and then you're seeing some training elements on that that tower element that anchors the apparatus space. Those elements that you're seeing along the parking areas are photovoltaic canopies. Again, we're trying to maximize the opportunity to generate power on this site to offset the power that's needed to support the operational goals. You can see the elevated podium also for the amenity that serves the supportive housing, the play structures that are on there, just the outdoor amenity space. It's really important that this really read like what you might see in a typical apartment community within this area, and we really worked hard to make sure that that was the case. But the retaining elements to build that podium up so that it's at a level of exit discharge actually help, because it allows it decouples the parking area from the grade of the patio areas, and then it creates a natural vertical separation to support circular goals of security around the building perimeter, to create a safe space for that outdoor amenity as well. You can't really see that there will be some other renderings that we're going to look at that are going to show that retaining wall along the rear of the property, which I believe that there's some questions that have been asked about that, so that we'll have a better look at that in some of the other slides. But let's go to the next. This is that entrance off of Beacon Hill Road that supports the supportive housing. We wanted to give a really good street front rendered elevation of what this is going to look like at street level across the street. And this, I think, does a good job of giving you a sense of the material, the palette, the scale of the openings, and the types of architecture that are going to be consistent with within this design composition. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is we were asked by as part of the GDP to elevate the retaining wall, because it was really important for the neighbors to understand what we were trying to develop. So we basically went around the entire building and elevated the retaining wall elements along the eastern property line adjacent to the residential property. We have probably it's the most extreme condition related to the retaining wall, specifically at that corner elevation, that corner of the site. And we worked really hard with planning, our landscape team, to develop kind of a living wall concept here that was going to integrate plantings at multiple levels, and was going to break up that wall so that it wasn't so massive, and really had a kind of a sense of biophilia within the overall design composition. You can see on the lower elevation that it continues, so that Site elevation from the south is the entire composition running along the rear of the site, and you can see the corner on the right side of that elevation is the most extreme condition. So that's the one that we really wanted to work hard to kind of develop a tiered approach to how we were going to break that elevation up and integrate plantings at multiple levels. And you can see these planting box details that we've provided at the south retaining wall. So you'll see multiple levels of plantings. The screening along that landscape buffer is going to consist primarily of conifers. So they will be evergreen type trees that don't lose their foliage so that you always have a strong buffer landscaping element along that wall. That was really important. And all of this planting buffer occurs along the county's property. And the wall is actually set back about 35 feet from the property line. So it will hopefully be a welcome improvement to the site. Let's go to the next. This is just some images that talk a little bit about the amenity spaces that we're going to deliver. This is focusing in on the amenity space that's supporting the emergency housing. There's that plaza that you're coming off of Beacon Hill Road, and then you'll be accessing the shelter entrance. We'll be looking at materials that are consistent with residential character, pavers, things of that nature, site furniture, some fencing as well to provide a strong perimeter for the overall composition, so that when you're entering the specific property that you're moving from the public right of way onto the site. There'll be pergolas and seating and just things to soften the overall look of the building from the outside to the inside. Should go to the next one. This is that rear amenity that we were talking about that supports the family and supportive housing. And again, the idea was to develop an area that was secure for families to be able to enjoy the outdoor with community and build a nice area, a nice outdoor amenity that was consistent with what you would see in other areas of Fairfax County. Brian, these are more specific to your elements. Did you want to touch on anything specifically?
I think you did a good job illustrating them and describing them. As you mentioned, the main importance is that we really wanted to try to create two separate zones of outdoor amenity space. Outdoor spaces are very important for not only the physical but mental health of the users, but wanted to create separate zones for the shelter, which Mark had shown on the previous slide, and then this area, which is more for the family supportive housing side. And so those would all be of very high quality materials, but also bring kind of this biophilic nature to the site, and then also carrying that inside to the building too, so that it kind of enhances the mental wellness of the users.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. And I think if you want to go to the next slide, we can focus in on some of the program. Well, I'm sorry. While we have this, just looking at another view of the outdoor amenity space for the supportive housing. This is kind of looking, if you took kind of a bird's eye from Beacon Hill, looking back towards Richmond Highway on the left, you can see excuse me, see the outdoor play area, some open lawn area for gatherings and activities, and then wanted to create kind of these separate pods for seating, covered with some shade canopy, and then also covered with trees. And then on the right, you can just kind of see another view of that if you were exiting the south side of the supportive housing lobby area, looking back across that amenity space. And next slide. And so we wanted to take a look just on, this is the first floor of the supportive housing and the emergency shelter. The emergency shelter is primarily on the larger rectangle that's running north-south on the left-hand side of the page. You can see the entrance of that is stepped off of Beacon Hill so that visitors and occupants have a kind of a procession to enter into the space with some outdoor spaces that allow them to kind of decompress, gather themselves before entering the facility. And so you would enter the emergency shelter where that red triangle is, takes you into a welcoming lobby space that has a reception for greeting visitors. To the north of that is more of the administrative and healthcare spaces from administrative offices to medical check areas. And then to the south of that lobby area, you see in the blue is the community dining area along with the multi-purpose room that is served by the area in green, which is the kitchen. Both the shelter and the supportive housing have their own elevators. So in the center, that kind of X you see is the elevator for the emergency shelter. And then to the right of that is the elevator for the supportive housing. And so the supportive housing has its own separate entrance that is located off of Beacon Hill with the kind of red triangle that's in the center of the space. Again, kind of having lobby coming into what you see in purple there as the lobby reception area with administrative offices on the right of the lobby. Really wanted to kind of give that a sense of openness and grandeur. So one's welcomed in. It kind of feeds into a community space, which then leads out to that outdoor plaza area. On this level, there are two family supportive housing units, which are noted in the light blue. One of those is an accessible 3-bedroom unit, and the other one is a 4-bedroom unit to the south side. Next slide, please. And so moving up the building, on the right-hand side, you see the second floor. The primary use for the emergency shelter on this floor this would be the sleeping quarters. So as we mentioned, there's 50 beds for the emergency shelter, along with those are both for men and women, which are in separate locations, and then each male and female shower and bathing areas, which you can kind of see they're located in the center. There is a central community space that is located in the center, which is that purple area, which also has an outdoor space for residents to go outside should they need to get some fresh air or just have some space outside. And then to the north of that is administrative space, again, for the emergency shelter. On the right-hand side is as you come up the elevator, you enter into a corridor that takes you to a small community area for the family supportive housing. And then that leads to a corridor that has 4 units on this floor, 2 3-bedrooms, 1 2-bedroom, and 1 1-bedroom unit. And then on the left-hand side, what you're looking at is the 3rd floor on the kind of the larger rectangle. These are all individual supportive housing units. So these would be 1 resident living in each unit. There's 20 of those. 2 of them are ADA accessible. And they kind of circulate around this purple area, which, you know, we kind of thought of it as really kind of the town square, but is really more of a community space that the residents can use on this floor. And then to the right of it is, again, 4 family supportive housing units with 2 3-bedrooms and 2 2-bedroom units. We've also, just as a note, we did step. You'll see on the 3rd floor, the building does step north, away from the residential units, so that the mass of the building is kind of reduced towards the back of the building, which is kind of consistent also with the land use plans. And next slide.
Okay, these are the two fire station plans. Thank you, Brian. So we'll talk from the first floor, and then we'll hit to the second floor. So you can see that red triangle again is the public entrance to the building. As you're moving through the building through the vestibule, you'll encounter the admin spaces, which includes your control room and specific offices for the leadership staff. As you continue down that corridor, you'll see a stair to your left, and then you'll see a ramp that accesses the apparatus bay. And then as you continue further along, you're going to see the fitness area, a second stair, and then the day dining kitchen suite in the rear with a patio from the exterior to support group activities like cooking and preparing food and eating are really important for kind of team camaraderie for the fire, for the emergency services. On the lower level, you have the operational spaces as well, which is your apparatus bay, and then the spaces that support the apparatus bay, including things like your PPE gear storage area, your decontamination room area, and then of course you've got your shop and some training host tower training elements as well that are all functioning off of that apparatus bay area. With respect to fire stations, there's several best practices and priorities in terms of how we plan these facilities. Cancer prevention is a huge concern within the fire emergency services industry. So we look at segregating what we call the source contaminant areas from what we call the clean zone. And so we do that through specific airlock kind of corridors that connect the source contaminant spaces to the clean spaces. So, and we also segregate the systems that serve those spaces in terms of the mechanical system. So it's really important that they kind of function independently of each other. So moving to the
Mark, sorry, if it'd be okay, I think the fire folks on here know pretty clearly, since they helped design what the fire station floor plans are. I don't know that the community needs to know all of the rooms and details in the fire station itself. So if it's okay, I'd like Claudia to talk about next steps and then go into questions.
Sure.
We already have a few in the chat.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Next slide, please. So we are currently in the process of obtaining land use approvals, including as we mentioned, the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning. We are continuing the development of the design of the project, and it's all towards obtaining the building and site permit. We're anticipating completion of the design, including permit approvals by March or spring of 2027. Currently, as far as next steps and current steps, we're doing our value engineering session is happening now this week, and our comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning process, this should be completed hopefully by May 2026. Our planning commission public hearing is in March 25, 2026. And Board of Supervisor hearing is in April 14, 2025. Once we complete the value engineering session, we will move into our construction document phase, which will start in April 2026 and end in December 2026 by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Christine.
All right, Bill Collins has a question. Where the fire trucks exit, will there be some kind of traffic light that can be turned red when the trucks go out on a call? How will they be noticed? So, Lori, I know you're on here, if that's something you can answer, or if it's already in the plans. Mark, if you have that information.
Well, there is not planned to have a preemption at this condition. There's a signal that's down the street, to Route 1. So that should be, sufficient. And of course, the location of the fire station is such that it's pulled away from that intersection to because there's obviously concern with potentially stacking at that intersection.
So Lori, does fire require any kind of notice? I know a lot of the fire stations near our office, they have it, the road is, there's a block out.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked that far, but we would certainly look at, maybe some striping and signage in front of the fire station. And then, as Mark mentioned, we usually have emergency vehicle preemption. So we would look to be putting a button in the station that would connect to the signal at Beacon and Route 1.
Okay, and that's
Anything we ask for, usually has to go through VDOT approval, of course.
okay. And so I know typically we get preemptions.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we're talking preemption at the major intersections.
Okay, but what about where they come out? Just
That
to be clear.
Yeah, was not planned just because it's an urban station and it's so close to that intersection.
Mhm. Is there one at the current Penn Daw site?
No, the light is at Route 1.
Okay. All right, we have a question from Rodney. Will there be a wall on the south side between the Conifer Buffered County property and the adjacent private property? Wall or fence where the current chain link fence is? Rodney, if you maybe want to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, there's currently a chain link fence between the back of my and my neighbor's properties and the former nursery. And so the question is the vegetated area behind the retaining wall of the facilities. There will be these conifers in some areas, apparently 2 levels. So the question is will there be a fence between the county property and our private properties, number one? And then I'll add the second question that I put into the chat is, will that vegetated area be accessible to the public? The concern is people getting in there, whether they're causing trouble or squatting or littering or having campfires or whatever, the public, people just getting into that area and causing problems. Any answer?
I'm trying to
Yeah,
pull up
he's pulling
the,
up the site plan.
I don't know that I can show it though for the GDP, but conditions, utility, where is the
But irrespective of you finding the proper slide, do you know if there will be a fence between the county property and the adjacent properties?
I think it's intended to have a fence system along the property line. And of course there's going to be the required fencing for or screening for the buffer is located actually on the property line, the property of the counties. So you'll have that wall system, and then you'll have the landscape buffer, and then
the secondary question is, will people have access to the landscape buffer? And because the concern is people accessing it who shouldn't be there. In other words, will I have behind my backyard someone squatting or kids playing or people doing stuff? Or is that sort of fenced off so someone will not be able to enter from either this development or from the Beacon Hill Street or behind the retail on Richmond Highway?
right now we are not showing a fence line along that property line. We're just showing the wall buffer and screening elements that are on the county side inside the buffer. So your concern is that that area that's the county property that the parcels would be adjacent to needs to be further separated with a chain link fence or some type of fencing system as well?
Well, I mean, I guess, that's part of the concern is most of us have fenced backyards, and will those remain fenced backyards? And again, access by outside people trespassing in that area. And what I don't want, what I don't want are kids playing in my backyard or adjacent to my backyard, or to be frank, homeless people or people who may have some difficulties with substance abuse, in that buffered vegetated area, which is almost literally in my backyard.
Okay.
So part of it is the aesthetics and that, and part of it is a security measure.
So, Mark, can you remind me what the height is of the wall, of the retaining wall in the back? Because I remember
Well,
there's a big difference between the back of the
yeah.
facility and the houses that are below.
There's an exhibit that was in that slide deck that showed that elevation, but the wall portion, which is basically behind the fire station, it varies at its extreme. The wall system is roughly 20 feet above the adjacent grade. That includes the extension of the wall above the level of grade plane for the apron and parking area, and then it necks down. It probably is about 14 feet at the other corner. So between 14 and 20 feet is the extent, the height of that retaining element. And then of course, the parking area that's in the rear of the emergency shelter doesn't have a retaining wall. Doesn't need a retaining wall because it is at grade, and it would just have a typical fence system that's required for the buffer.
And so my concern is, even with the retaining wall, will someone be able to walk between the emergency shelter and where the Walgreens is, walk between those buildings into my backyard and my neighbors' backyards? Or to the county, the buffered area right behind our backyards?
Yeah. That is obviously something that we would want to address if that's a concern. We could definitely provide additional fencing around at the property line of the site.
Can you go back to the plan and show where the property line actually is?
Yeah, see that red dashed line, that's your property line.
Right. So that's his concern, that red line to the retaining wall, because you're going to have access to that area to maintain the trees. So his question is, and the answer is, of course, people will be able to get into that area. There's no way to stop people from getting into that area. So of course it's going to be just like, you're concerned about there, unless you put up fences with concertina wire and guards with rifles preventing people from getting in there.
Well, I mean, come on, it's not going to be with rifles and that. I mean, don't
That's my
overstate
point.
it.
That's my point. Nobody's going to do what it takes to keep people out of there. People will be able to get in there if they want to. So your concern
So right
is,
now, if, someone could, based on this illustration, someone could go behind the fire station and enter my backyard, my neighbor's backyard. My property is behind where the electric right of way is, frankly. So someone could walk around and either enter my property or shoot up drugs or have a campfire in that vegetated area between my back fence, if I have a fence, and the retaining wall, or dump litter and garbage and stuff. And so that's a very big concern if that area is not secured.
Yeah, Mr. Sobin, may I jump in on this one
Sure.
here? Yeah, we will be looking into adding fencing to this area, and we'll give a closer look on the exit and entries of this buffer area. I think people may be able to access it from the north right side corner. So we'll take a deeper look at this and we'll address this concern.
Okay, and then when the
Appreciate it.
project is developed, you should inform us, neighbors who to contact if there are maintenance problems or security problems so that there's
Of course.
immediate response, in case there's garbage or, whatever. I hope not, but just in case.
Yeah, of course, we will do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Reeves, you have a question?
Yeah, if I could give just a little bit of background first. Congratulations. Thank you all for participating in this, and congratulations to the design team. It appears to be a great looking and well-designed facility. It is difficult to locate information. I understand you'll make the slides used today and also provide a good link to the materials for us and for other people. I attended some earlier meetings and I appreciate the euphemisms that you use. Now it's supportive housing. I'm not sure I understand the difference between emergency and supportive housing. And one of the questions I raised is whether there's going to be bleed over from those who are being placed in emergency housing to provide more people in supportive housing. My other comment really is I live just over 100 yards from the proposed facility. I have been interested for a long time, and I've asked the question before and not gotten an answer, but I'd like to learn whether, first of all, I did find out I live about 100 yards away, and in the earlier town hall meeting I attended at the facility location, none of the officials or staff who attended that lived within several miles of such a facility. The question I have ultimately really is whether you have studied the impact on nearby home values. And if you have not, I don't know how you can proceed when you're potentially wrecking home values. You're putting people in the neighborhood. We've already got some folks who mess up the neighborhood, throw trash, and otherwise. I had my back fence was opened today by someone. I have no clue who it was, but we've got some. Now we're going to add, I don't know how many people to the neighborhood. If you have not studied home values, I believe that's a fatal flaw. Have you studied home values and the impact this will have on home values?
Mr. Reeves, if I could
My
try
name
to
is Rives, Mr.
answer,
Burnett.
Mr. Rives, yes, to try to answer some of your questions. First, regarding the bleed over from emergency shelter to supportive housing, it's important to note that these are very different types of housing. One is about temporary stays. People don't have leases. They're there as a guest. The people that are in the supportive housing pay rent like any other apartment owner, and so they're there on a time limited basis. To your question about the property values, there was a presentation in September 2021 where the Department of Tax Administration provided some results from their research, and I'll put the link in the chat so you can review those.
Will you make the chat links available after this? Because, of course, I typically find in this sort of meeting, people will have a lot of good questions and good information in chat, and then it's nowhere to be found. But also just I did, when I got the mailing about this meeting, I used everything I could find, and I'm fairly computer literate, to try to get information on the proposal. Several years ago, I was able to find it easily. This time I couldn't find it at all.
We'll take a look at that. The website hasn't changed, but all of the
The
materials
website is not
posted there.
user friendly. I challenge you to ask any smart person to try to locate the type of information you gave us today.
Okay.
Anyway.
We're going to move on to Catherine
Yeah,
has a
please
question
do.
about what size caliper will the buffer trees have when planted?
Related to the plantings, it'll be consistent with what's required for the landscape planting. That's actually specified, I believe, in the zoning ordinance.
And your answer is what? I don't want to look it up. You should know what it is. Please tell me.
We'll have to get back to you. I don't have that information available.
All right, Catherine, we will follow up with you on that. Bindu has a question. Can you tell us about security of these facilities, especially at night, with its close proximity to Route 1?
Hi, this is Tom Barnett again. I don't know if I introduced myself before. My name is Tom Barnett. I'm the Deputy Director responsible for the Office to Prevent and End Homelessness, part of the county's Department of Housing and Community Development. So security is something we take very seriously. There's security inside and out. There are cameras inside and out, rounds conducted by staff that are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 365 days a year. So they're inspecting the property inside and out, making sure that everyone is following the rules required for their residency. We obviously have a very close relationship with our public safety partners, both in the fire and rescue department as well as the police department. So we will also rely on our partners in the community, in the neighborhood. We welcome any of our neighbors to be part of the solution, to call us. We'll make our information available when there are issues, but we are proactive in pursuing any sort of problems that we may encounter. I'm happy to answer questions specifically about the security, but I'm not sure what might be helpful.
Okay, those are all the questions that I can see in the chat. Thank you, Tom, for that. If folks have additional questions, if you could raise your hands and we'll take them, and we'll start with Ray Novitsky.
Thank you. I have a number of questions. A few of them have been answered. Let me cross them off the list. Let's see. Will any of the supportive housing residents have need for parking spaces? Or are all of the parking spaces for the workers, staff?
There are parking spaces for the supportive housing residents.
Are any of the supportive housing residents accessible? I mean, do they need accessibility?
We don't have residents currently selected, but I think the design team could probably explain how many parking spaces are accessible.
Yes, thank you, Tom. There are 4 accessible parking spaces located on the in the rear of the site. Those would be available to residents and guests. And for the facility itself, there are right now 4 accessible units, 2 efficiencies, 1 2-bedroom and 1 3-bedroom unit.
Is there an accessible route from the parking to the supportive housing? Because I see a big stairwell.
Yeah,
go in through the loading dock.
Yeah, so the arrow, the red triangle that is kind of in the lower right-hand corner of the blue rectangle, that is the accessible entrance, which enters on grade from the parking. From there, that corridor leads to a interior elevator lobby, which allows you to get access to either the supportive housing or the emergency shelter side. So there's a lobby that is internal to the building that has 2 separate elevators to each use.
So that's not really an entrance to this shelter, or it can be for both, is what you're saying?
It can be for both. There'll be a video phone on the outside of that door. So if you are a resident or a worker at a facility, you would have access through key card to get into the building. If you were visiting for the first time, you would use the video phone, which would call the desk at the emergency shelter. From there, you would be directed to either enter the site or not.
Okay. Let's see. What is the current zoning requirement, if you know it offhand, for a buffer between a single-family residence and a facility such as a fire station? I'm just wondering if the little buffer on the east end between the adjacent residents and the retaining wall is adequate for current zoning? Or is this something that you would be willing to or asking to eliminate or revise in the comprehensive plan?
And I believe the prescribed waiver is a 35-foot landscape buffer between a public use and a residential use. And we are looking to get a reduction of that buffer requirement on the east property side. On the south, we are providing the full buffer requirement.
Okay. And let's see. On this plan, I see something labeled as wooden fence on grade between the buffer and the parking where the shelter is and the supportive housing. Is that really the case? I didn't see that shown in the axonometric.
Yes, that is the case. Now, what's interesting is you can see where the trees drop off. We are maintaining that 35-foot buffer, but it's not prescribed because there's no residential uses to the south of our property in those locations. And you can see where the residential uses pick up is where the landscape buffer picks up. Related to the fencing, that's part of the landscape buffer requirement to provide the fencing along that. The parking is on grade in that location, and so the fencing is at grade too. There's no retaining wall element along that portion of it.
Okay, so the fencing there is on grade.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the parking is on grade and there's no retaining wall. The retaining wall starts where the fire station is?
Yes, sir.
And maybe a little bit of the parking behind the supportive housing because I see 2 stamps of green trees. What is 11? 11 is training pad, and I didn't see that in your perspectives either.
Well, the training pad is just a concrete pad for working on extrication activities that's located behind the rear apron. You can see it at the bottom left corner of the rear apron, number 11. I mean, it's not really anything it's just a concrete pad. You wouldn't even see it really.
And the little brown things are the dumpster locations?
That is correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ray. We have another question about the stormwater management facilities and conveyance. An earlier drawing indicated plans to run a line to the rear of the property through Mr. Sobin's yard into a stormwater structure in his backyard.
That is correct. We'll be seeking an easement to connect to an existing stormwater easement that's off-site. Stormwater management for this project, will include an underground detention and treatment facility. We will be collecting all the water on the site. Currently, it sheet flows from the current site to the adjacent sites to the south. The water just sheet flows. It's not controlled. We will be collecting every bit of water on the site, and we will be circulating it through an underground structure, and we will be treating it, and then we will be releasing it at a much reduced rate. So you will have a better condition than what you currently do, what you're currently experiencing. We are increasing the impervious area, but we are reducing the rate at which the water will leave our site dramatically, and we'll be treating it in the process as well. So you'll have an enhanced stormwater management system that's proposed for this parcel, this 3.5 acre parcel of land.
I do want to note that we did have one storm event a number of years ago where there was so much water coming in. The stormwater structure in my backyard comes from the BMP behind the Bray and Scharf store. So there was one event where water was actually coming out of the stormwater the structure. So the concern is having a lot of this impervious area. And I know you'll have retention, but I want to know what degree of storm event you are planning for, and if you use some old BMP's, stormwater handbook, not recognizing the change in climate, I am very concerned because storm events are getting stronger. So if you're not planning for, a 6-inch or 7-inch precipitation, it may be very inadequate. It may end up flooding those of us who are south of you, south of the property, even with that, pipe. The pipe may be inadequate at that point.
Yeah. Well, the storm feature that you're speaking of is kind of to the left, I believe, bottom left corner, and we're not going to tie into that one.
Yeah, but you're going to be going back where
Yeah.
the Virginia Power right of way, where those
Correct.
power lines are.
Yes, sir.
My property is to the south of that
Right.
and a little bit to the west.
Yep.
And that's also parallel to where the proposed pipe from this property will then intercept a stormwater structure that goes below my property.
Okay. Well, we will get you an answer to the storm event that we are required to design to, so you have that information. It sounds like you're pretty knowledgeable. We can provide you as much information as is available related to the stormwater design. But the intent of the design is to radically reduce the outfall from our site and to control it so that it doesn't cause any problems downstream. So
Okay.
you will have a better condition because of this project than you currently have.
Yeah, I'll appreciate that technical information. I'm just concerned about if someone uses a 20-year-old manual and says this worked for Department of Conservation Recreation manual from from 2000, given the changes in climate, you need to do above the bare minimum of whatever's in some handbook from years ago.
So, Mr. Sobin, I put my email address in the chat, and Mark, I don't know if you want to put yours in or if Claudia should be the point of contact.
Yeah, Christine, I will reach out to Mr. Sobin, and I can put my email contact if you'd like to send me any email with more information. I think we exchanged emails in the past.
Yeah, I believe so. It's quite some time ago.
Yeah, and I can put my email in the chat.
Okay.
Hey, Christine Salem here from the Department of Planning and Development, Salem Bush. I was going back on that comment related, or the question related to the caliber of trees. I have the plans pulled up. If I could share my screen real quick.
Sure.
And all right, hold on one second. Let me know if y'all see that. It should look like plan set.
Still might be coming.
Yeah, I think it's still loading.
Yep, we see it now.
Okay. All right. I'm not a landscape architect, so this is not my field, but David and I have been through the review of this this application for the plan amendment and the rezoning. So it's still under review. These aren't like the final numbers necessarily. I know there's still some outstanding comments related to the trees and the plantings, and I think even the caliper possibly. Claudia, you might know better than I do about that. But this sheet shows, and I'm not sure actually which is showing the planting schedules for the transitional screening, and there's TS1, TS2, and TS3. That's the 3 different charts here. So I'm not sure which side that is. I don't know, Mark, if you know with the TS1, TS2, but this shows pretty much the same for each one. I think they're 2-inch caliber trees, and then some large and medium-sized trees that would be mixed into it along each side. But I don't know if Mark or Claudia, you want to expand on any of that. Like I said, it's still under review, though.
Yeah, I know the one thing that I would add is from our, I know from our office and from Supervisor Stork's perspective, we need to look at improved mitigation on the walls. And so while you all are looking at the rezoning, that's, I know, one of the things that our office has been asked to comment on.
Yeah, and we've been working with DPWS and the design team to try to work through some of those comments. So I think we're looking for some additional size trees and screening, just like you're saying. So we're working with them on that, and I think they have a good plan going forward to make some improvements.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? Nope. Ray just shot his hand back up. Yes, sir. Well, I think he might Oh, nope, Ray took his hand back down.
I just got muted after I started talking. In the earlier plans, we had a separation between the outdoor spaces of the supportive housing and the outdoor spaces of the shelter area. And I think that you at least attempted to solve that. And let me see if I am understanding the site plan correctly. The outdoor spaces for the supportive housing are kind of one level up above the parking, correct? Because I think I saw an outdoor stair. And the area in the back of the shelter is at a lower elevation. So the only way you could get to if you were in the outdoor spaces of the shelter around the back of the building, you would need to climb that stair to get up to another level where the outdoor spaces of the supportive housing is, correct?
Well, the outdoor spaces for both the shelter and the supportive housing are on the same level. However, they are not connected. Where you see that kind of red arrow is the entry to kind of the lower level entrance, and that area is a level below. So you cannot get from the outdoor amenity space of the shelter to the outdoor amenity space of the supportive housing.
Okay, so where number 7 is, I don't remember what 7 is, generator pads.
Correct. So that's at a floor below or level below.
All right, so number 6 would be up above number 7 in the entry.
That is correct, sir.
And then 2's on the supportive housing is up a level. So there's no way somebody can get to one or the other unless they flew over.
That is correct.
I may interject,
Okay.
we can go to the rear view. That will kind of explain the question more or the answer more.
There you can see that
can
gap.
see that.
Yeah. It's a little bit hard to see in there, but you can see the brown brick part continues down a full level.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that separation's there.
Yes.
Okay, we've got a question from Mary Payton, and then Kevin will get to you. Are the units built according to universal design? Many PSH residents are elderly. Are the units universal design?
All of the units have accessible routes and accessible entrances. They are designed to, at a minimum, meet Type B accessibility, which is required as part of fair housing. They are not currently designed for universal design, other than the 4 units that I mentioned for the that are fully accessible.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, you have your question?
Yes, this is following up a little bit on one of the earlier questions in terms of the impact on the neighborhood that Tom pointed us to that earlier PDF from a couple years ago, where the county did an analysis of the surrounding properties of some of the other shelters. Having just refreshed my mind by reading that, there really is nothing quite comparable to this in terms of the number of single family homes that are so close to this facility. And so it really is a big question mark. And in my research, in terms of trying to find other comparable facilities and embedded in a neighborhood like this, it really doesn't exist anywhere else. That we're really doing something quite new here in terms of the relationship between the emergency. We're really talking about the emergency shelter. The supportive housing and fire station is not the issue here. It's the emergency housing closeness to single family housing neighborhoods. And so what I would like to see is some recognition of that, and planning for that and studying it and research. Maybe even it gets to the degree of funding some sort of university project, so that if the impacts of this facility on the surrounding neighborhoods turn out to be substantial, we have somebody studying it and documenting it so that, I mean, I don't want to say, because the reality of getting any compensation, if that does happen, is probably not going to be in the cards. But the fact that at least if we're doing this right and we're studying it, and we have, at this point, maybe we could show that it's not a problem. In fact, that you can put something like this in a neighborhood and the impacts really are minimal. At the same time, if we document it and they are not minimal, we've learned something from this project. The fact that we're sort of surrounding this and we're the guinea pigs. At least if it's being studied, we can look back on this and say, hey, this is what really happened. Whereas even in the previous studies, they were done so long after, the temporal nature of the studies and the housing and the facility were such that it really wasn't well done. Whereas if we thought about this ahead of time, we funded some research, we funded a university to, in fact, document all this so we know what the impacts really are going to be after the fact. I think that would be helpful in the long run. Over.
Okay, I'm happy to share that feedback with Supervisor Stork, and also happy to talk more with Tom Barnett and their team about that. Bindu, and I'm going to say this is the last question because we're at 8:29. What is the normal time somebody stays in emergency housing and in supportive housing? So that is for Mr. Barnett.
Yes, ma'am. Hello. Thank you for the question. The typical stay in shelter is a matter of a few months, typically less than 6 months. I don't have a specific average number of days for you, but happy to communicate via email separately, and I'll put that in the chat. In terms of the supportive housing, we did a quick analysis recently, and the the number of years was, I think it was 6 or 7 years. It was the average stay. So this is sort of what you would expect for someone who may be living in the regular rental market. But these are, again, people renting apartments with no time limit, whereas shelters are a temporary stay.
If how does somebody get into the supportive housing? What is the process for getting one of these units that's different than the typical rental market?
Yeah, so these are people who are typically unable to find something in the rental market because of their income. So these are people who typically have incomes on the lowest side of the income spectrum. They're selected from people experiencing homelessness who are unable to find other options.
So what's the difference between this and affordable housing, I guess?
Sure. I mean, affordable housing is not specifically targeted at people experiencing homelessness. That's the primary distinction. But it's supportive housing is essentially affordable housing paired with supportive services. So there will be people visiting and on site to help them make sure they're having all their needs met.
Okay. Thank you all very much for staying with us for the last hour and a half. And I appreciate all of county staff's time and all the folks that are here so we could get everybody's questions answered. Certainly appreciate all the community members that have joined us tonight. And if you have any other questions, you're always welcome to email me directly, contact our office. We're happy to connect you with the right folks. And as a reminder, we currently have the comp plan amendment and rezoning public hearings going before the Planning Commission on March 25th and the Board of Supervisors public hearings on April 14th. And notices for those will be going out I don't know what the time is beforehand. Salem, do you know off the top of your head?
The timings for what? I'm sorry.
When the mailers go, when
Oh
notifications
yeah,
for the public hearings.
I think we typically send them out 2 weeks in advance. Is that right, David? David's
The
one
plan
that sent them out.
amendment public hearing notices have, I think, were sent out last week, so people should be receiving them shortly. I think the rezoning public notices go out later.
Okay. And there'll also be signage on site as well. And for those of you, everybody that is on the committee, I encourage you to share this information and the links to the meeting. The meeting will be posted as well as all of the materials from tonight's meeting. And we're happy to send that out as well from our office. So thank you all and have a good Tuesday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.